Some stories are so extraordinary, so precise, that they refuse to be dismissed. But what if I told you that the life of Jesus wasn't just a series of miracles, but the literal fulfillment of ancient prophecies written hundreds, even thousands, of years before his birth? What if I told you that every move he made, every word he spoke, every step he took was already mapped out long before he ever walked the earth? You see, most people have no idea how detailed these prophecies were. They weren't vague predictions. They were bold, specific, measurable claims, the kind of statements that, if left unfulfilled, would destroy the credibility of the entire message. Yet history stands as witness. Every one of them unfolded exactly as spoken. And here's the question that changes everything. What does that mean for you? Because if these prophecies are real, if they actually happened the way the scriptures said they would, then the story of Jesus is not just a belief system. It's evidence, it's proof, and proof demands a response. But there's one piece you haven't been told yet, a detail so often missed, so easily overlooked, and when you hear it, you'll never look at this story the same way again. Stay with me. The hope that crossed centuries, the promise of a Messiah. Hope is a powerful thing. But what happens when hope takes generations, centuries to be fulfilled? Imagine living your entire life holding on to a promise, a word spoken so long ago, yet still shaping the way you pray, the way you dream, the way you raise your children. This was the heartbeat of Israel. From the first breath of the book of Genesis, the story begins with a promise that one day a descendant would come, one who would crush the head of evil itself. This wasn't just a belief, it was a lifeline. A divine thread woven through every chapter, every verse, every quiet moment of surrender. Picture a people surrounded by empires, oppressed by kings, forced into exile, yet still clinging to words spoken by prophets who often stood alone against the world. Their faith was not passive, it was active. It was the kind of faith that fasted, that cried out in long nights of prayer, that recited scripture by heart, holding on to each word as if it were bread in a famine. These prophetic words formed more than hope. They were a spiritual map filled with markers pointing the way to the one who would come. Not vague, not random, clear signs that could not be ignored. Think about Abraham, standing under a sky filled with stars, hearing God say, "Through you all nations will be blessed." Or David, a shepherd king, singing songs of a future king greater than himself. Generation after generation, they waited, they believed, even when it didn't make sense. And maybe that's where this story touches your life too, because waiting is hard. Whether you're waiting for a door to open in your career, praying for financial breakthrough, hoping for peace in your mind or healing in your body, holding on without giving up is one of the hardest things we ever do, but it's also where real personal growth begins. So let me ask you this. Is there a promise you're holding on to? A word spoken over your life that hasn't happened yet? If so, I want to hear about it. Share it in the comments below. Because this story, these prophecies, they aren't just ancient history, they're a mirror. A reminder that the God who fulfills his word is still working today. In your business, in your investments, in your health, in your spiritual life. Hebrews 10:23 says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful." That's not just good advice. That's a way to live, born of a virgin, the impossible sign fulfilled. 700 years before Jesus was born, the prophet Isaiah stood with boldness and declared a sign so outrageous, so beyond human logic, that many struggled to believe it could ever come to pass. He said, "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." Isaiah 7:14. Now stop and think about that. A virgin conceiving a child? Humanly impossible. biologically absurd. But here's the truth. When God designs a plan, it does not need to fit inside the box of human understanding. Divine strategy always overrides human limitation. This prophecy wasn't symbolic. It wasn't poetry. It was a literal statement of what would happen, and it happened exactly as promised. In the small town of Nazareth, a young woman named Mary, engaged but not yet married, receives a message from the angel Gabriel. "You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Jesus." Imagine the weight of that moment, a girl with no status, no influence, chosen by God to carry the greatest promise the world has ever known. This is what we call divine connection, when heaven steps into the ordinary and rewrites the story. But why would God choose this path? Why not come through royalty, through power, through prestige? Because the message had to be clear: success, breakthrough, purpose. They are not reserved for the obvious. They are not given only to those society deems worthy. No, God moves where the world least expects. And this same truth applies to your life today. Maybe you're looking for ways to create extra income, to build wealth, to grow your career. Maybe you're thinking, "I'm not qualified, I'm not ready." But hear this: God qualifies those He calls. Whether in your finances, your mental health, your spiritual walk, His plans are not limited by your current position. Now let me challenge you to reflect. Where in your life have you written yourself off? Where have you allowed doubt to limit your potential? Leave your answer in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because the virgin birth is more than a miracle of the past. It's a living symbol of how God works through impossibilities. It's a reminder that the same Spirit who empowered Mary empowers you to rise above fear, to believe in the impossible, and to step boldly into the purpose you were created for. Philippians 4:13 declares, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," and that is not a metaphor. The unexpected place, born in Bethlehem, the city of David. You see, when God sets a plan in motion, no detail is random, no step is accidental. 700 years before Jesus was born, the prophet Micah spoke these words, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel." Micah 5:2. Bethlehem, a small, insignificant town, not the kind of place where kings are born, not the place where power gathers, but that's the point. Success, purpose, calling, they are not determined by location or status. They are determined by alignment with the plan. Think about this. The Roman Empire calls for a census. People are forced to return to their ancestral towns. Joseph and Mary make the difficult journey to Bethlehem, not because they planned it, but because the prophecy required it. And while the world saw only political movements, God was moving chess pieces on the board of history. This is not luck. This is precision. The same kind of precision that works in your life when doors open, when opportunities appear, when the right connection shows up at the exact right time. This is the work of divine connection. The Spirit aligning events beyond human control. Now, I want you to feel the power of this truth. Because many people believe they're stuck. They believe their environment holds them back. The city they live in, the job they have, the circumstances they were born into. But listen carefully. Your outer world does not limit your inner potential. If God can bring the Savior of the world out of Bethlehem, out of what looked like nothing, He can raise up abundance, creativity, new streams of income, and career breakthroughs right where you are. This is not theory, this is spiritual law. A law more certain than any investment strategy or productivity hack you'll ever find. So let me ask you, are you waiting for the perfect condition before you move forward? Are you waiting for the right place, the right moment, the right Bethlehem to appear? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because the message here is simple but profound. Greatness is not about where you start. It's about who's guiding your steps. Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Your job is to stay open, to stay ready, to recognize that even the small, unexpected places may be the very ground where your greatest breakthrough is born. Descendant of Abraham, from the tribe of Judah, from the house of David, the prophetic bloodline. Nothing about the life of Jesus was accidental. Every piece was intentional, every detail designed long before his birth. God made a promise to Abraham, "Through you, all nations on earth will be blessed," Genesis 12:3. And that promise became the starting point of a lineage, a prophetic bloodline that would carry the hope of salvation through generations. This was not about privilege, it was about purpose. The line of Abraham, through the tribe of Judah, down through the royal house of David, each name, each life, part of a plan far greater than any single person could imagine. Now, think about your own story. Your own family line. Maybe it's filled with strength, maybe with struggle. But here's what you need to understand. In God's design, every piece of your story can be used. The genealogy of Jesus, recorded so carefully in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, is filled with imperfect people, liars, thieves, outsiders. Yet God, in his sovereignty, weaves redemption right through the center of it. And this is where the power of personal growth, of development, of entrepreneurship begins, not in perfection, but in alignment with purpose. Because here's the truth. Your past does not define your future. Your family history, your financial background, your career mistakes, none of these disqualify you from the greatness that is inside you right now. If God can work through the broken branches of a family tree to bring forth the Messiah, then surely he can work through your challenges, your setbacks, your not enough. This is how real renda passiva is built. Not by chasing quick fixes, but by understanding the laws that govern growth spiritually, financially, mentally. Let me ask you, have you been letting your history hold you back? Are you telling yourself a story about why you can't? I want you to stop right now. Drop that story in the comments below and write a new one. Declare it, own it, because what the bloodline of Jesus teaches us is this: the greatest transformations happen not in spite of the past, but through it. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." All things, not some things, all. Preceded by a messenger, the voice crying in the wilderness. Every great movement requires preparation. Every masterpiece, every revolution, every breakthrough begins with a call, a voice that wakes the soul, stirs the heart, and commands attention. Long before Jesus stepped onto the scene, that voice had already been spoken of. The prophets declared it with certainty, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, "Prepare the way for the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God." Isaiah 43. This wasn't a casual suggestion. It was an essential piece of the plan. The ground had to be cleared, the hearts had to be ready. Enter John the Baptist, not a politician, not a scholar, but a man of the wilderness, bold, unapologetic, dressed in camel's hair, eating locusts and wild honey. You can feel the raw power of his message even now. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near. His voice wasn't refined by culture. It was sharpened by conviction. He didn't build armies. He didn't seek fame. But he did something far more important. He awakened people. He prepared their minds. He cleared the clutter that often blocks the flow of divine connection. And I want you to pause here, because this isn't just history. This is a pattern, a principle. Before any great shift in your life, there is always a voice. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's soft. But it calls you to clear the space, To let go of the mental noise, the limiting beliefs, the self-doubt that stands between you and the life you're capable of building. Whether you're seeking financial freedom, launching a business, or improving your health, the first step is always the same: clear the way. Prepare your inner world to receive what God has already aligned for your outer world. I'll ask you directly, what in your life right now needs clearing? What clutter, emotional, spiritual, even physical, is keeping you from hearing the next step? Write it down. Better yet, share it in the comments. Speak it out loud. Because the truth is, we all need a John the Baptist moment, a wake-up call, a shift that says, enough of the excuses, the time is now. Productivity, progress, even the path to wealth, none of it flows well through confusion. That's why clarity is currency. And clarity begins with preparation. Jesus himself confirmed the role of this messenger when he said, "Truly I tell you, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist." Matthew 11:11. Imagine that, the greatest, not because of status, not because of riches, but because of his willingness to prepare the way. If that principle was essential, then it is just as essential now. Before you move into the next level of your career, your finances, your relationships, your faith, the way must be made straight. The space must be cleared. The heart must be ready. Ministry in Galilee, light for those living in darkness. When you look at the way most people chase success, they tend to aim for the center stage, the big city, the bright lights, the obvious places where power and influence gather. But God doesn't follow that pattern. The prophet Isaiah spoke it long before it happened. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Isaiah 9:2. Not Jerusalem, not Rome, but Galilee, a place on the margins, overlooked, dismissed, considered unimportant. And yet this is where Jesus chose to begin his ministry. Galilee was the kind of place people avoided if they could. A region marked by struggle, by oppression, by mixed cultures and complex histories. But I want you to notice something profound here. Light does not shine where it is already bright. Light is meant for the dark places, the places people forget, the places people abandon. And maybe that's why some of you are listening right now. Because somewhere inside, you felt like Galilee, overlooked, counted out. But the truth is, that's exactly where God starts the greatest works. Right where others say there's no chance. This is more than geography. This is a principle, the breakthrough you're looking for in your finances, your career, your spiritual life. It often begins where you least expect. It begins when you stop trying to force success where the world tells you it should be and start aligning yourself with where the opportunity actually is. Render extra, money online, passive income. But listen carefully, the strategy is secondary. The mindset, the clarity, the spiritual alignment, that's where the real work begins. Because light flows through channels that are open and ready to receive it. Let me ask you, where have you been searching for answers in all the wrong places? Where have you been waiting for the perfect conditions while ignoring the opportunity that's right in front of you? Don't just think about it. Write it down. Share it in the comments below. Because once you bring that awareness into the light, it loses its power to hold you back. Jesus started his mission in a place the world ignored. And that choice carried a message. Your worth is not defined by your surroundings. Your potential is not limited by where you stand right now. Matthew 4:16 echoes the prophecy fulfilled. The people living in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. This isn't just ancient text. This is an invitation. It's a call to let light shine where doubt has lived, to let hope rise where fear has spoken. Whether it's your health, your money, your productivity, your peace of mind, the light still shines, and it shines strongest where darkness once ruled. Parables as the primary tool, the mystery revealed through stories. There's a reason why the greatest teachers don't just tell you what to think. They show you how to think. They don't hand you answers. They invite you to discover truth for yourself. Long before Jesus began his ministry, Psalm 78:2 declared, "I will open my mouth with a parable. I will utter hidden things, things from of old." And when the time came, that's exactly what he did. He spoke in parables, stories so simple, so clear on the surface, yet layered with depth, holding truths that only the humble, the open, the spiritually hungry could truly grasp. Why parables? Why not just speak plainly, directly? Because transformation doesn't happen through information alone. It happens through revelation. You see, the conscious mind may process facts, but it's the subconscious, the heart, the spirit, that responds to story. Jesus understood this perfectly. Whether he was talking about seeds, sheep, or lost coins, he was always pointing beyond the obvious, unlocking deeper wisdom for those willing to lean in, to listen, to reflect. This is not entertainment. This is education at the highest level. And here's where it gets personal. Many people today are chasing success by stuffing their minds with data, strategies, formulas, financial tactics for earning money online, investing, boosting productivity. But let me tell you something, without understanding how to apply truth at the level of belief, none of it sticks. The parables were not designed to impress the intellect. They were designed to bypass the noise of the ego and speak straight to the soul. That's where real change happens. That's where lasting render perceiver and personal growth begin. So, let me ask you right now, are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? There's a difference, and that difference could be the very thing standing between you and the breakthrough you're waiting for. Take a moment. Ask yourself, where in your life have you been so focused on the how that you've missed the why? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because the one who understands the why will always figure out the how. That's the wisdom Jesus offers through every story he told. Matthew 13:35 confirms the fulfillment of this prophetic strategy. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden since the creation of the world. Understand this. The parable is not just a method. It is a mirror. It reflects back to you what you're ready to see. The more open your heart, the more truth you receive. This is why spiritual alignment matters more than hustle. The greatest investment you will ever make is the one you make in understanding, not just in accumulating knowledge, but in cultivating the wisdom to use it. Healing the sick and freeing the captives, the power of a different kingdom. There's something undeniable about results. You can argue with opinions, but you cannot argue with evidence. Long before Jesus began his work, the prophet Isaiah wrote with absolute certainty, "Then will the eyes of the blind be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then will the lame leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy." Isaiah 35:5-6. These were not poetic hopes. They were prophetic declarations, detailed previews of what would mark the arrival of the true Messiah. And when Jesus stepped onto the scene, those words didn't just stay on paper, they came alive. But here's what you need to understand. These miracles were never about showing off. They weren't for applause. Every healing, every act of deliverance was a message, a demonstration that the kingdom of God operates on different laws than the world around us. Where the world saw incurable sickness, Jesus brought restoration. Where society saw hopeless cases, Jesus saw potential. This wasn't theory. This was application, power in motion, faith with feet on the ground. And the same Spirit that worked through him, the Holy Spirit, continues to work in lives today. Now let's bring this closer to home, because healing is not limited to physical illness. Some of the deepest wounds are invisible. Anxiety, fear, financial bondage, broken relationships, these are chains just as real as any disease. And the truth is, many people are living captive without even realizing it. Trapped by limiting beliefs, stuck in cycles of procrastination, weighed down by stories of lack and failure. But hear me clearly. The same power that opened blind eyes opens minds. The same Spirit that lifted the lame lifts those stuck in self-doubt and fear. Whether it's your health, your money, or your mental peace, freedom is available. So, I want to ask you something important. Where in your life do you need healing? What part of your story still feels like a prison? Speak it out. Write it down. If you're ready, share it in the comments, because the first step to freedom is always awareness. And the second step is faith, the decision to believe that what seems impossible in the natural is fully possible with God. Luke 18:27 says, "What is impossible with man is possible with God." Don't just read that. Own it. Stand on it. This is the core of the kingdom Jesus introduced. Not a kingdom of theory, but a kingdom of transformation. A kingdom where miracles are not exceptions, but demonstrations of the way things are meant to be. A kingdom where productivity flows, where mental health is restored, where financial freedom is possible, where passive income and business success can align with spiritual peace. This is the higher law at work. The same God who healed bodies and freed captives back then is still in the business of doing it today. Betrayed by a friend for 30 pieces of silver, the price of injustice. There's a sting that cuts deeper than failure, deeper than loss, and that is betrayal. Not by an enemy, not by a stranger, but by someone close, someone trusted. The prophet Zechariah, centuries before it happened, wrote these chilling words. "So they paid me 30 pieces of silver, and the Lord said to me, 'Throw it to the potter,' the handsome price at which they valued me." Zechariah 11:12-13. 30 coins. That was the price placed on the life of the Messiah, not a king's ransom. Not the wealth of nations, just the cost of a common slave. Now think about this. Judas wasn't just a name in history. He was part of the inner circle. He walked with Jesus, ate with him, heard his words firsthand. Yet when the opportunity came to trade relationship for reward, he took it. And here's the truth we often miss. Betrayal almost always comes disguised as opportunity. It whispers promises of quick gain. It offers shortcuts, the illusion of success without sacrifice. But it always collects its price, always. You see, betrayal isn't just about silver, it's about the exchange of what's priceless for what's temporary. But let's get honest here. Betrayal doesn't just happen between people. Sometimes we betray ourselves. We betray our own dreams. We sell out on the vision God placed within us for the comfort of excuses, for the safety of staying small. We trade long-term abundance for short-term security. We avoid the work of growth, the discipline of focus, the courage of faith, and then wonder why the doors don't open. Hear me on this. The price of betraying your calling is always higher than it looks. It costs you peace of mind. It costs you purpose. It costs you progress. So I'm going to ask you directly, where have you been settling? Where have you been trading purpose for comfort, potential for convenience? Write it down. Share it in the comments if you're ready. Because the first step to breaking the cycle is to call it by its name. Don't let the price of injustice be paid with your peace, your health, your income, your faith. Remember what Jesus said about Judas. The Son of Man will go as it has been decreed, but woe to that man who betrays him. Luke 22:22. This was not just about Judas, it's a warning to every one of us. Yet even in betrayal, there is a lesson, there is a choice, because the betrayal did not stop the plan. It did not block the purpose. In fact, it played right into it. And that's the deeper truth. No betrayal, no injustice, no failure can cancel what God has appointed. But your agreement, your alignment, your choices, they still matter. So choose wisely. Choose integrity over compromise. Choose vision over shortcuts. Choose faith over fear. That's the true path to freedom, spiritually, financially, personally. Silent before his accusers. The courage of the Lamb. There's a kind of strength the world rarely understands, a power so profound that it doesn't shout, it doesn't defend, it doesn't fight back. The prophet Isaiah described it centuries before the moment arrived. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Isaiah 53:7. Silence, not as weakness, but as choice. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any argument ever could. Now pause and think about this. Jesus stood accused. Lies were told. False witnesses paraded before him. The pressure to fight back, to prove himself, must have been immense. And yet, he remained still. Not because he was powerless, but because he understood the purpose, because he knew exactly who he was and why he had come. You see, when your identity is anchored, you don't need to chase validation. You don't need to waste energy defending yourself to those determined not to understand you. That is the mark of true power. This principle is life-changing if you grasp it. How often do we get caught in battles we don't need to fight? How often do we waste mental energy arguing with critics, explaining ourselves to doubters, defending our dreams to people who have no business weighing in? Whether in your business, your relationships, your career path, the need to constantly prove yourself can become a trap. It drains your focus. It kills your productivity. But Jesus shows us another way. Stay aligned. Stay centered. Silence can be strategy. So here's the question I want to put on your heart today. Where have you been fighting battles that are not yours to fight? Where have you been spending your valuable time and energy on proving yourself instead of moving forward? Write it down, bring it into the light, share it in the comments if you're ready. Proverbs 17:27 reminds us, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." The higher your purpose, the less you need to argue. Your results will speak for you. This is the courage of the Lamb, the confidence to stay silent when the world demands a reaction, the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stand still. And this is not passive, this is not giving up. It is strategic restraint, the discipline of those who are clear on their mission. Apply this principle and you'll see it ripple into every area of your life. Your mental health, your financial decisions, your productivity, your spiritual walk. Because when you stop fighting the wrong battles, you free yourself to win the right ones. Crucified among criminals, the innocent among the guilty. One of the most striking things about the life of Jesus is how deliberate every detail was, even the way he died. The prophet Isaiah wrote it plainly. He was numbered with the transgressors, Isaiah 53:12. And when the time came, that's exactly where he was placed. Not isolated, not spared, but crucified between two criminals. Pause and let that sink in. The sinless one, the healer, the teacher, the embodiment of love, treated as just another offender. This wasn't a mistake. It was part of the message, part of the plan. Because here's what you need to understand. Jesus didn't just enter the world of the broken, he identified with it. He didn't preach salvation from a safe distance. He stepped into the mess, the pain, the injustice of human experience. By hanging between the guilty, he demonstrated something extraordinary, that grace reaches all the way down, that no matter how deep the failure, how heavy the shame, how great the mistake, redemption is still possible. He positioned himself where the world places its rejects and turned that place into a gateway for hope. Now apply this to your own life. Maybe you've been counted out. Maybe people have labeled you, boxed you in, decided your story based on your past or your failures. But let me tell you this, your environment does not determine your destiny. The judgment of others does not dictate your worth. Whether it's your career, your finances, your health, your personal development, your future is not decided by the opinions of those who misunderstand you. If Jesus could stand between the guilty and still remain the Redeemer, then you can rise too. So let me ask you directly, where have you allowed labels to limit you? Where have you agreed with the voices that said, "This is all you'll ever be"? I want you to confront that today. Write it down. Declare the truth that cancels the lie. Leave your thoughts in the comments if you're ready to step out of that agreement, because freedom begins with recognition, and the word is clear. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36. That freedom includes your mind, your money, your health, your productivity, every area of your life. The cross between two thieves was not the end of Jesus' power. It was the ultimate demonstration of it, a message for the guilty, the broken, the ones who feel too far gone. You are not disqualified, you're not forgotten, you are not finished. This is not about perfection, it's about position. Position yourself under the truth of who you are in God's eyes, and watch how every limitation begins to lose its grip. That's not wishful thinking, that's spiritual law in action. His hands and feet pierced, the shocking detail, foretold in the Psalms. There are details so specific, so impossible to predict by chance, that they demand your attention. One of these details was spoken long before crucifixion even existed as a method of execution. Psalm 22:16 declares, "They pierce my hands and my feet." Now think about that. Hundreds of years before Roman crucifixion was invented, the psalmist describes it with precision. This was not symbolic language. This was not metaphor. This was foresight. The blueprint of divine intention etched into Scripture long before the cross ever stood on Golgotha. When the moment arrived, the prophecy unfolded exactly as spoken. Nails driven through flesh, hammer against bone, the Messiah lifted high between heaven and earth. But here's the key. This wasn't just brutality. It was a message, a declaration that every wound had purpose, that the pain was not random. The pierced hands that once healed the sick, the pierced feet that walked on water, crossed cities, carried the good news to the forgotten. Every strike, every drop of blood, a fulfillment of the word, and a statement of love that could not be silenced. Now lean in, because there's something powerful here for your life. We often hide our wounds, we cover up our struggles, our failures, our scars. But what if I told you that the very places where you've been pierced are the places where your power is waiting to rise? In your business, your relationships, your finances, it's not about avoiding pain. It's about transforming it. Passive income, wealth creation, productivity. They're not built on avoidance. They're built on courage, on the willingness to stand in your truth, scars and all, and keep moving forward. So let me ask you today, where have you been hiding your wounds? Where have you allowed shame to keep you silent about your journey? Speak it, write it, bring it into the light. Share it in the comments if you're ready, because the breakthrough doesn't come through perfection. It comes through authenticity. The pierced hands and feet of Jesus are not just symbols of suffering. They are reminders that your pain can become your platform. Your setback can become your setup. Your breaking point can become your breakthrough. Zechariah 12:10 points ahead to this moment. They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child. This isn't just prophecy, it's personal. It's an invitation to stop running from the pain and start allowing it to refine you. Whether in your health, your money, your mindset, or your spiritual life, the places where you've been pierced can become the places where light shines through. That's how transformation happens. That's how legacies are built. Casting lots for his garments, prophecy fulfilled down to the smallest detail. The truth about great plans, real, divine plans, is that nothing is left to chance. Every piece matters, every detail counts. Psalm 22:18 describes it clearly. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. It's a small detail, a moment that seems almost insignificant at first glance. Soldiers beneath the cross rolling dice to see who gets what. But this is where the magnitude of the prophecy reveals itself, because when even the smallest pieces align, you can no longer call it coincidence. It's proof of a plan unfolding exactly as it was written. Now, understand the context. Crucifixion was brutal. Stripped, humiliated Jesus hung exposed. And there, beneath the shadow of the cross, Roman soldiers gambled over his clothes. They didn't know they were fulfilling scripture. They weren't aware they were part of a prophecy centuries old. But that's the power of divine connection. Even when people are unaware, even when the world is blind to it, God's plan moves forward, with precision, with certainty, down to the last stitch of fabric. This isn't just historical fact. This is a lesson for how life works. You may think some details in your life don't matter. You may believe that certain pieces of your story are random, disconnected, insignificant, but nothing is wasted. The job you didn't get, the opportunity that seemed to slip through your fingers, the tough seasons that felt like detours. Hear me on this. Even those moments are part of the map. The financial setbacks, the slow months in your business, the closed doors. They aren't failures. They are alignment tools. So let me ask you, where have you been dismissing the small details of your journey? Where have you called something a setback when it might actually be set up? Take a moment, write it down. If you're ready, share it in the comments, because often it's not the big moves, but the small, consistent steps, the daily choices, the quiet disciplines that unlock the doors to financial freedom, to health, to spiritual growth. Productivity isn't built on random hustle. It's built on intentional focus, on seeing purpose even in the small things. John 19:23-24 records the moment with stunning clarity. When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes, dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining. This garment was seamless, woven in one piece from top to bottom. "Let's not tear it," they said to one another. "Let's decide by lot who will get it." This was not an accident. This was prophecy fulfilled to the letter, and it reminds us of this simple, powerful truth. When your life is aligned with purpose, nothing is wasted, not even the threads, buried with the rich and the promise of resurrection. The story could have ended at the cross. The pain, the betrayal, the humiliation, all of it could have been the final word. But God had already written the ending, and it was nothing like what anyone expected. Centuries before this moment, the prophet Isaiah declared he was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. Isaiah 53:9. Once again, the details were not left to chance. They were stitched into the very fabric of prophecy, precise, intentional, unstoppable. Here's what happened. Jesus, executed alongside criminals, should have been tossed into a common grave. That was the Roman way. But instead, a wealthy man named Joseph of Arimathea stepped forward, a man with influence, a man with resources, and he offered his own tomb, cut out of solid rock, prepared for someone of status, of wealth. That was no accident. That was prophecy in motion, and the message was loud and clear. God controls the narrative, not circumstances, not tradition, not human systems. Now here's where this becomes personal and powerful, because the tomb was never meant to be permanent. It was only a resting place between the promise and its fulfillment. Some of you are standing in your own tomb moments right now, a place where your dream feels buried, your career feels stuck, your income streams have dried up, your mind feels trapped in fear. But hear me, the tomb is not the end. It is the turning point, the quiet space before resurrection, the seed beneath the soil before the bloom. Let me ask you directly, where in your life have you called something dead too soon? Where have you stopped believing before the story was finished? Write it down, speak it out, share it in the comments below if you're ready, because the principle here is bigger than history. It's about how the laws of life operate. John 12:24 reminds us, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Growth requires burial. But burial is not the end. It's the setup for the breakthrough. The resurrection of Jesus was not just a miracle, it was the seal, the confirmation that every promise of God stands firm, that what He speaks, He completes, that the laws of the kingdom override the laws of circumstance. Whether it's your health, your money, your mindset, your mission, the pattern remains the same. There is no grave deep enough to hold back what God has appointed for your life, and that is not philosophy. That is truth, that is spiritual law, and that law still works. When you step back and look at the full picture, prophecy after prophecy, fulfilled down to the last detail, you begin to realize something undeniable. This wasn't chance, this wasn't coincidence, it was intentional. It was written, it was promised, and it happened exactly as it was meant to. 14 specific prophecies, 14 bold claims. Each one verified, each one a signature of the divine, signed across the timeline of history. But here's where the power of this story reaches into your life today. Because these prophecies aren't just about proving who Jesus is. They're about proving what's possible. They're about showing you that the promises of God are not abstract ideas. They are real, they are measurable, they are reliable. Whether you're believing for healing, for breakthrough in your finances, for clarity in your career, for peace of mind, the same God who fulfilled every word then is the same God who holds your future now. So let me ask you, what's the prophecy over your life that you've been too afraid to believe in? What's the promise you've buried because it felt too big, too impossible? This is your moment to bring it back to the surface, to believe again, to align yourself, not with the fear, not with the doubt, but with the truth that has already been proven. Because once you know the story is true, your only real question is, what will you do with it? If this message sparked something in you today, if it opened your eyes, if it challenged your thinking, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me which of these fulfilled prophecies impacted you the most. Because conversations like this aren't meant to stay one-sided. They're meant to grow, to deepen, to lead to new levels of understanding. And if this stirred your heart, you'll want to watch the next video waiting for you right here on the screen. In it, we go even deeper, into the truths that most people miss, the principles that can unlock not only your spiritual life, but your health, your finances, your productivity, and your peace of mind. Don't miss it. Click now and let's keep building.